Welcome, fellow last placers, to another episode of LPF Debrief, where Chris and I talk about movies, TV shows, and sometimes anime. And normally, we don't do the anime thing, but today we're totally doing anime. So the intro is no longer a lie. So we're gonna start every episode the same way we do all the time, and that's by shaming Yendi for not watching the content that we watch. So shame. And today's episode, we are going to be talking about Star Wars Visions, which came out on Disney Plus and is a pretty much an anime adaptation of Star Wars. So it's pretty much an anthology. We're going to talk about the whole series in a whole because it's just easier that way because some episodes are like 15 minutes short and we didn't want to make just one episode for like a 15-minute episode because then that'd be like who knows how long. So, but before we start, we're gonna say the same things we always do. There are spoilers ahead. There,
Yes, for the whole
sub-
series. For the whole
yes,
series.
for the whole series.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, subscribe. We're doing a mouse giveaway at 100 subs, so please hit the sub button, hit the like button, tell a friend, do all that good
Also,
stuff.
hit. You
So,
know what? We got to start saying hit that notification bell so you know when these videos go live because
oh yeah,
you,
that
you
too.
guys are getting 2 of these this week, and not a lot of people know that. They're like, oh, I usually get 1.
Yeah.
I didn't see the second one. What happened here? So hit the notification bell, and also I'm gonna keep saying this until we get to the mouse giveaway. Let us give you stuff, please.
So yeah, definitely do that because we are going to be dropping a lot of debriefs in the coming months because there's a lot of content coming out, and Chris and I like to talk about it. So let's get right into it. Uh, let's just do it this way, Chris. We're gonna talk. We're gonna pretty much go through like I guess a little bit like episodes.
Yeah.
Just do like a little briefing of each episode, and then do so. Episode one, the duel, which was produced by Kamikaze Doga, and they pretty much have done work with if you ever saw Batman Ninja, they actually did the animation on that, and they also did some of the opening animation to JoJo, which if you guys know me how much I love JoJo, so
Jojo.
that was that's who was behind episode 1, which was the duel. So Chris, what was your opinion on the duel?
Dang. I will say also, if you guys haven't seen this yet, like I know we said spoilers, but if you plan on watching it, none of the episodes are what's the word?
There's no, yeah,
Episodic?
they're not in, yeah, they're all anthology
Yeah.
episodes, so you can watch them out of order. You don't have to watch the ones that we probably didn't think were the best or things like that. So if you want to watch like our top 3, which we're going to give out at the end, you could do that, and because it really has no continuity or it's not canon. So
Yeah, and then
as
also there, like you said, they're different lengths, but the ones that are 20 minutes are considered short films. So
yeah,
the duel is one of them. What an opening! It was
yeah,
fantastic. The art style and the black, it wasn't really like black and white. It was like pencil drawn, like
yeah. I
kind
mean,
of
it was
thing.
black and white for the most part
Yeah,
until like yeah,
but it was dope. It was so good to see one like in the series as a whole as we go through it. They made the Sith really like a lot of badasses. Like it's just like wow, I can't believe what they're going like everybody it seemed like they really focused on the dark side on the Vision series, which I appreciate. And a lot of these stories in the Outer Rim, it's just insane to think like uh I didn't think Star Wars could get better, and seeing a lot of this stuff, seeing the different stories and seeing it as an anime, I didn't know this is something I wanted, and now I just want it all the time. Uh,
hmm
but yeah, episode 1, that main opening, when the one I like the little R2. I'm thinking about getting that painting. There's a painting surfacing around the R2 with the straw hat and
hmm
going through. Um, but yeah, we're met with the lone samurai, I guess you could say. He's by himself. He's
yeah,
traveling, and you just think he's on about his business. And he enters into a village where it's basically taken over by the Empire, and the Sith Lord that's there had an interesting weapon. One of my favorite things about the show was like the different takes on
iteration.
lightsabers, and her umbrella, like she had an umbrella lightsaber that she used, and she could spin it. So it's like take General Grievous's like arm whenever he spins his arms, but it's
Yeah.
just like literally a machine. It just like holds it up. I was like, this is dope. Yeah, the fight scene was fantastic, and seeing the red lightsaber with the black and white just made it so much better. What did you think about the episode?
Oh yeah, episode one's definitely up there with one of the best episodes of this series, and it was a very strong start because a lot of people, when you think anime, you automatically think like very bubble character likes, and pretty much like what episode two was kind of like. So when we get there, but that's what most people think about anime, but it does have different like evolutions and different versions, and this is one of those art styles where once you get used to it, you're like, man, this is a really great art style because it accentuates a lot of things like facial features and just that whole fight scene done in that art style was fantastic because it was very like we saw the lightsabers come out and we were like, oh, like, you know what I mean, like there's the color, but that was the only thing. So it pretty much focuses on that color, and it's kind of Sin City like, which is if you guys remember Sin City, how they just accentuate certain colors, and red was a predominant color, and it makes sense because now it emphasizes those characters. And then they didn't give the character a name, but they did call him Ronin once in a while. But like he was just a wanderer; he didn't really have a name. The character itself was just a badass. Having that whole scene and where he's going about his business and then he's just like, hey, like, can you fix my robot? And then like he goes to fight and then he pulled like they're like, oh, you're a Jedi, and then he pulls out a saber and it's like, oh, it's red. But
Yeah.
then you find out that like he's not a Jedi or a Sith really, because he's helping fight Sith lords. And at the end of that episode, which was really dope, was like he was collecting all the kyber crystals, which is also something that I love that this series emphasized, because kyber crystals are something that kind of gets lost in Star Wars translations, especially with the movies, because they don't actually ever really look for kyber crystals. They did it once in the original trilogy, but then even then it's not really like a predominant storyline.
Yeah.
So them showing kyber crystals is something that the books do, and I'm glad that they did this in that because it's an essential part of going to it's part of that journey, and I think them showing that definitely was amazing to me. So I'm glad that they showed that. And then the fact that every Sith that he ends up beating, he actually takes the crystal and then has it like as a source of protection, or like so he could use it later. So I thought the whole episode was amazing. The premise behind it was amazing. All that, and then him giving the crystal to who was the acting chief leader, which was a kid, because his dad was just like in the thing like sleeping, and he was
I think
just
he was
like,
sick. I
oh
think the dad was sick.
yeah, I think he was
Yeah.
sick, but it
It
looked
like
like
yeah,
he
he
was
was
sleeping.
out. Yeah, yeah.
So he like, gives it to him and then says, hey, this will protect you against evil and stuff like that. So them using the kyber crystal, even though it's a red one, not actually being Sith, which is also cool. So that little twist was sweet for me, and I thought that was a real good way to accentuate a character who's fighting against the Sith, even
Yeah.
though he's using a Sith lightsaber.
I'd like to think that his collecting the kyber crystals was just like if you haven't read the Vader comics, they tell you that kyber crystals are a life force, which they are, and the way a Sith Lord gets one is that they have to kill a Jedi, and they basically torture the crystal until it turns red. It makes it like basically a red lightsaber is the crystal bleeding.
Mhm.
So I was just like, oh, maybe he's collecting them because he's just like, it's like he's taking back that soul that was lost
Yeah.
or something like that. That's what's cool about these episodes. They leave them kind of wide open so you can kind of have
Mhm.
your own thoughts about it. But yeah, that moment when he's just like, when he's trying to get the farmer to calm down, I think that's why he
Yeah.
puts the teapot. He's like, hey, I need my droid fixed before the teapot like
Yeah.
starts screaming. And the guy's like, okay. And
Yeah.
I think it's just like him focus, like don't focus
Yeah.
on this, like just focus on the teapot and then get this done.
Yeah, it was such a good episode. I thought, like I said, it's definitely one of the best of the nine that were here. So I enjoyed that, and we'll get back to it on later because we're gonna do a top three, like I said.
Yeah.
So if you guys stick around, we can tell you our top three. So episode two, Tatooine's Rhapsody, which was done by Studio Colorido. And they did A Whisker Away, Burn the Witch, and they did a Pokemon short called Twilight Wings, which was an episodic thing. So
Wow.
yeah, they got that's one of the things that I loved that Disney did, is that they did go get
They didn't
names
sleep
that
on
people
anything. They're
know.
like, no,
Yeah,
you are like, we're this is gonna
yeah.
bop. This is gonna be really good.
Exactly. And speaking of bop, that's
Yeah,
exactly what this
this
episode
episode
was.
is.
Was a large bop because it's basically just And this is probably, and also not to mention one of the Easter eggs in the first episode was when he actually kills her, and he's on the Vader shrine, like he puts the red lightsaber on a
Yes.
Vader shrine,
Yeah.
and then like she's like, "Oh, I got you," and he's like, "Nope," and he's just like, "Shoot," and I was like, "Oh, it was so cool," because it's like samurai, like a samurai Jedi, which is like you just,
Well,
I
the other
mean,
thing about
yeah,
that too is like what I thought was cool is how they're making the lightsaber samurai blades is like whenever they
yeah,
ignite it, the
hmm
bottom of it where you see it, it's like
it's
it's forming
perfect.
that little hilt
Yeah,
there.
it's so
So it looks
good.
like a samurai blade. And whenever they put it away, it's
Yeah,
like
the sheath it,
disengaging
yeah.
as they sheath it. It's so
It's
cool.
just so cool.
Uh,
Yeah. Well, yeah, back to episode 2. So that's exactly what it was. It was an absolute bop. I mean, it's just a rock band out there, and we find out the twist, which is where we see the most of the Star Wars cameos. Actually, is in this episode because we actually see two characters who are main mainstays pretty much in the Star Wars series. We see Jabba and we see Boba, and we're following a group, a rock band group, who's they're like a ragtag bunch, and pretty much Jabba's trying to get what I think is his child at that point because it feels like it's his son to get him back. And basically, the way that they even, I guess, defeat Jabba, because first of all, Boba shows up and is just amazing
he looks
and
so
adorable.
cool. Yeah, it was like I enjoyed him a lot.
Yeah,
It-
he's amazing and adorable all at the same time because like we all know Boba as this badass character who's just, cool as hell. And then like you see him in anime form and he's intimidating, but he's also adorable. So it was really cool to see that take on him and pretty much them going to like it was just like a rock band. They had their lead singer was I guess like was a Padawan at one time is what they kind of hint
he
at
was
because this was
very
one of the
he was very
yeah,
young though. It was a
yeah, he
youngling
was a
going into,
youngling.
but yeah, it was
Yeah.
very very small.
So we see some of that episode where he's running away with the lightsaber and stuff. So it wasn't kind of like, but he clearly didn't continue his practices because he's now in this rock band. So they pretty much just take they take young the Jabba and pretty much try to take him away. And then they work out a deal to where he's like, "Hey, we're gonna sing this song for you," and to try to get him out of this deal. And essentially, the song actually works, and the song is a bop. And you see Boba's like bobbing his head, Jabba's like wagging his tail. It was a cool episode.
It
So,
was
what did
very
you think
cool.
of it?
I thought like one the guitars,
Yeah,
seeing the guitars, the
epic.
strings and stuff. I was like, man, this is such a cool idea.
Yeah.
Really really good. This is also the episode. So I did start the series in English, right?
Oh,
Because I know I'm a fan of Jordan Fisher. He's a voice in 7. So I didn't know that. I didn't know what episode he was in. But this is where also this is the episode that I decided I was like, this was a big mistake. Because whenever he gets to that song in English, sorry to the voice actor, bro. It was out of tune. You were not on key. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It did not sound good. And as soon as he started singing, I was just like, oh no. And I switched it to Japanese. And that's also a tip for you guys. Alan, for one, always watches anime subbed because he believes that's how that's how he wants to take his content. It's fine. I swap back and forth between whatever I get more emotion out of. So there's some series I start in English and I continue in English, and there's some series I start in Japanese and I finish in Japanese. This one, the Japanese voice actors seem like they're putting their all into it. It feels very emotional. So if you watched episode 1 and episode 2, or if you watched the whole series already and you're just like, yeah, it was okay, go back and watch it in Japanese and then feel like you'll it's a huge shift, man. And that's what I felt with this episode. As soon as I switched to Japanese, I'm like, this is it. Like, this is so good. But yeah, man, the guitar was dope. And that moment, my favorite scene is like whenever the kid, like he's getting taken away, like he agrees that the little Jabba agrees, like, hey, I'll go back. And he's walking away, and the lead singer decides, like, okay, this is my time to save my friend. He's done everything for me, and he takes his lightsaber, and Boba Fett immediately pulls out his gun and stares at him, and he's like, you sure you want to do this? And then he tries to ignite it, and the lightsaber breaks. But that was like seeing that still shot of Boba Fett standing there with the pistol
Yeah.
out was so good.
Because Boba's already seen, like, he knows what it is, and
Yeah,
he's
he
just
knows
like,
what's gonna
yeah,
happen. Yeah.
yeah. So, and then the fact that they went back to that and he uses it as a microphone later on, which is also was
Yeah,
really
it was
cool
really
because
cool.
remember he pulls out the thing and he's like, "Hey, it's just a microphone," and then like they rock the crowd. Everyone's like one more song. Like I said, Boba's enjoying himself, like rocking out, and I thought this was a really sweet episode, and I thought the song should have been the anime opening, because before we started this, Chris and I was talking about the one thing that they didn't do was have a traditional anime opening. So I think this should be their anime opening,
Yeah.
and it worked. It just shows. And then one of my favorite things about this series was that we've never seen Star Wars in this light, right? So just having this new breath of fresh air of seeing Star Wars, we've seen it in cartoons, we've seen it in animation, we had never seen it in anime. So letting the Japanese artists and directors and voice actors get a chance to do something that they probably was influenced by too, because I know a lot of them watching the behind the scenes stuff, they were like, we love Star Wars, we've always wanted to work on it, and now that they have a chance, you could tell that they really took the time to craft what they did, and they handled this with care. Like, whether you like anime or not, that's your choice, like, whatever. But like, to see the art style and people who do like anime get a chance to see Star Wars in this light was really fun, in my opinion. So
It's crazy. The stories were just so good. All of them.
yeah,
All of them were
yeah,
really
they were
cool. And
all
it's, you would never think like, oh, I never thought of this in a Star Wars sense, and
exactly.
that they could do this. So yeah.
Yeah. So then we're gonna move on. Episode 3 was the twins. This was done by Studio Trigger, and if you guys know who they are, they've done Kill la Kill. If you have never seen Kill la Kill, I recommend watching it. It's so good. Kill la Kill is one of those animes that just like, it's not supposed to be as good as it is, and it is. So definitely check that out if you get a chance. And this episode for me was very much anime like this was shot like how people stereotype animes, right? It was very like scream out your attacks. It was very the story was still good. It was about two twins who, fought, that's pretty much a homage to Star Wars, is following two twins, and then they pretty much, they're both Sith actually, and then one is trying to do this mate like pretty much do blow up planets, same kind of story, and the other one gets a heart and is like, listen, we can't let this happen. So they end up having a fight scene, which is most of this episode is that fight scene, and the fight scene is ridiculous. And I mean, like, when ridiculous, you take that how you want.
Yeah.
Some people might find it amazing, some people might find it over the top. It was 100% over the top and still amazing, because they were literally fighting on top of a Star Destroyer, because their main ship was two Star Destroyers put together. So like,
But also
just
with no.
thing,
I remember watching that fight
just what,
scene, and I was like,
yeah.
"This is badass." But whenever they had like, whenever his helmet breaks, I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
he's screwed." And then he kept fighting. I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we're okay."
Yeah, no. The laws of physics, everything went out the window, because he was just like, okay, I'm just gonna breathe in. I was like, wait, what? But I do have something that will make sense. So technically, they're not human
Yeah.
because they were made. So yes, is it a stretch that was the thing? And they still operate? Yes, but I'm guessing that's what they're saying. Is
Just for
that they're
me,
actually not human, so he probably can breathe. We don't know if he has mechanical lungs. We
yeah.
don't know, right?
I just think they shouldn't have had that scene because they made it kind of
Exactly.
dramatic when his helmet came off to
Mhm.
make you think like, oh my god, he's screwed, or he's
Yeah.
gonna have to like find a way to get inside or something like that. But
No.
they just kept going, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. I was
Okay,
like,
yeah.
this kind
Well,
of threw me
they're
off,
throw
but
out
all
the
right,
rules for
whatever.
this one.
But
But
yeah, the
it
fighting
was
scene.
like I said, it was a cool scene. I love that he went into an X-wing. You know what I mean? I thought that was cool because they had an X-wing, and it was probably from someone they took or whatever, or kidnapped. But he went and he tries to go out on this X-wing, and this is the moment you should have known it was going to get crazy. Is when he's flying away in the X-wing, and she literally stops him with the Force, like in space, stops him because she was pulling on the reactor power thing that she
Yeah, that
needed,
he would. Yeah,
and was stopping the whole ship. And then I was like, okay. Once I saw that, I was like, all right, I know where this is going. Like, I know exactly where this is going. We're about to have the most ridiculous fight scene of this, and that's exactly what it was. It was the most ridiculous, but again, he was trying to save her, right? So that was cool. He was like trying to save his sister from being completely evil, and their fight scene was crazy. It was amazing. And then you see this the final attack, I put it in my notes, was absolutely ridiculous, but the concept behind it was so dope because this dude literally turns onto his X-Wing. He pulls out his lightsaber, okay, who's now infused with an extra kyber crystal, which another episode where they mentioned kyber crystals, and it was a huge influence because she actually puts the kyber crystal in her chest and it powers her whole costume, which was also Gundam like, really cool. And then he takes his lightsaber and goes upside down
It makes the
on his
biggest
X-Wing
blade.
and then goes into hyperspeed. Like he goes into hyper speed to do the softest attack. It was strong enough to just break the crystal, but not go through his sister, which I was like, listen.
But he also
As
split
a
the
person,
ship in
that's
half,
what I'm
right?
saying.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
He
gets
splits
like
the whole ship. He gets to his sister, does a light attack, light enough just to break the little amulet thing, and then crushes through the rest of the ship. And then goes to Tatooine. What? Like, dude, it was absolutely insane. It was one of the most craziest things I've ever seen. It would literally, I didn't know whether to be like, I had all the emotions. I was shocked. I was amazed because I would have never thought of that. And just the fact that he was able to do it was just amazing to me. And also another thing that I love that they did a lot of references as far as lines go. Like they did the Han Solo a lot. I got a bad feeling about this. They did that a lot in this show, which I thought was fun. And yeah, so that episode 3 was pretty crazy. What'd you think, Chris?
I think the same thing. It was very fast. I think it's because it was just how much was going on, all the fighting scenes and everything like that. It was quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. Not one of my favorites, but yeah, I was like that. You're right. This was full blown like anime Gundam episode where it was just like they're just screaming at each other the whole time and fighting. I was like, wow, this is. I'm like,
you just didn't know what to like.
You're just like looking at the screen. You're like,
what? Just like I just didn't know how to take it in. And then when he, like I said, when he did that final attack, and then goes like, you got to think about. I don't know where they were in space, like because we don't get no actual like. They don't say any of the other planets, but we only know that they're on Tatooine because of the suns.
Yeah.
At the end, right? So the fact that he did an attack with the lightsaber on an X-wing, going into light speed, like to Tatooine, and not cutting his sister in half. I don't know. I just don't know. But
you got all these force ghosts. You got all these force ghosts from the original that were just like, hey man, y'all should really travel to the outer rim. I'm just
exactly.
saying there's some people out there
they doing
that can help us win this war real quick.
We could have won this a lot faster if we were fighting with these guys. So listen, man, I got nothing to say. But that's all I got to say about that episode.
You told me to go to Dagobah. No, man, I told you to go further. I said go past Dagobah.
Keep going.
Keep going.
Don't stop. Right. So episode 4 we're going to get into now, which was Village Bride, which I thought this was produced by Kinema Citrus. They did Black Bullet. They also did Rise of the Shield Hero, which are also cool, fun animes. And this episode for me was, like I said, I'm going to do my rankings later, but this episode to me really hit. It was really good because this showed you that Jedi path of, she pretty much, the main character, which we don't get her name, I don't believe, but the main story of this is they're in a very like culture, I don't want to say cultured, very what's the word, like they're very in tune with nature, I want to say, like vibe, and they like this village and stuff, and the Empire is coming in to take one of the girls because that was the deal, so that he didn't like ruin the planet, because he didn't want that, they didn't want them ruining the planet, because obviously they were of nature. They believe that like the world works with them and stuff like that. And we even see that in this episode, right? But we also see these two characters who are off to the side, who are kind of like just enjoying the scene kind of thing and just wanderers pretty much. And we see one of the characters, she has a mask on, and you could tell she's kind of like, very passive, very chill, like kind of character. And then pretty much we see this happen, and then we see the Empire show up. Then the Empire shows up and is like, we're taking your wife, like your sister, and your wife, because we don't want anyone to oppose us. So the sister of who the bride was supposed to be gets taken because she wanted to uprise, and obviously the Empire knew that. So then they take her, and then that's when this episode, like, for me, really started.
Yeah.
And it becomes like, it just, man, when she shows up, the Jedi that shows up, I just thought her presence alone was dope, because they had like that little scene with her and the bride where they're talking about the Force, which I thought also another cool thing, because they introduce, like, they're talking about all of the Star Wars elements that we know, and they're having like how it affects their world, right?
Yeah.
So them saying, like, the bride saying pretty much that like the Force helps us with this life, like the life that we live here, was something that the Jedi could understand. Also, the Jedi that was there kind of takes the Ahsoka path, right? Because she's not supposed to intervene, but then she's like,
well, you can tell the other guy there was like egging her on. He's just like, hey, I mean, it's your choice.
Yeah,
but
he was like, you're the one who follows that stupid path, not me.
Yeah. He's like, it's your choice, but I mean, like, I know what you want to do. And then she's like, I know what you're doing. And he's like, I'm just saying, like,
he did the classic. Listen, I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, but so when they touch the stone, like in the beginning of the episode, when they're getting ready for their marriage and stuff like that, and they do their prayer at the stone, that's when she first insights, like, oh, the Force is here. Like, she feels it, and she's like, wait, that's, like, she felt the presence, and I thought that was really beautiful to see. And then the sister, I think it was like an arrangement, though, right? Because it was like,
it was an arrangement.
She had to get married to become like a certain status in her.
So
plan,
they
I guess.
They wouldn't come to the planet anymore.
Yeah, so she had to get to that certain status, and then she was the agreement was like, hey, I have to go with them. So yeah.
So yeah, that happens, and then obviously, the Empire being the Empire shows up, tries to take her sister. She's like, no. Then the Jedi shows up, takes off her mask, and then that's it. It was because it became bad. She was like, nope, this is not happening. I'm going to help. So they try to shoot the sister, and this Jedi literally stops the bullet midway.
Which I'm liking a lot. Ever since Kylo, and ever since they introduced that with Kylo, they've been doing it a lot. It's just like, why can't they do this? And now it's just like, every time they do it, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. So she stops the bullet, and then like literally just force pushes it back into the gun, and it like hurts the guy's hand. And then, man, from there on, the fight scenes, and again, the fight scenes in this were absolutely fantastic. Just seeing those fight scenes in anime form was just the best, in my opinion. It was amazing to see. She goes in, then my biggest freak out moment, because as a fan of the Knights of the Old Republic, you will, the yellow lightsaber, which we don't get enough of. And she pulls out the yellow lightsaber, and I started to freak out. And I'm like, she has a yellow lightsaber. And then on top of that, though, it's the samurai version of a yellow lightsaber, because it has the edge, it has the point. And then when the dude tries to attack her, and she just literally like slices, and then sheets it, I was like, oh, this is it. I didn't know we could get this in anime form, and we are getting it. It was just completely badass, showing that the way of the samurai is very similar to the Jedi, and you could tell that when George Lucas was creating this, that he pulled from different influences, and samurais being one of them. So this makes perfect sense to me. Like, it was a great episode, one of my favorites of the bunch. I got nothing else on it.
Yeah, man, it's definitely up there for me. I enjoyed this one a lot. Like I said, that opening scene was beautiful. But yeah, that one slice of like that samurai moment was badass. And the guy, I'm gonna give it to that guy up top with the weird helmet thing.
Yeah,
where he puts the helmet up. Like,
dude, we find out the helmet's a rocket.
Yeah.
Because it blows up the ship. Because they actually, what they did was to take control back is that they took the battle droids. So that kind of showed us a little continuity in that too, because they reprogrammed battle droids, and then they had the whole network. We know how that works. And then it's on the ship. He takes his helmet, throws it off, and then the helmet becomes a rocket and like blows up the ship, and all the battle droids go away. So overall, a great episode. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was definitely one of my favorites. And then the yellow lightsaber, please just give us Knights of the Old Republic something, please. I know we got comics and stuff, but the animated show, man. Just give it to me, please.
It'll work. Or just an anime.
Yeah.
They could do it in anime form. I'll be
Yeah,
fine with
they
it.
could do her character. I will follow her character. If they did just a show on her, I'd follow both of them. Period. So, you ready to go to the next episode?
Oh, yeah. The Ninth Jedi.
Episode 5, Ninth Jedi. This was Production IG. Their notable work was Core Goes Basketball and Ghost in the Shell. So,
okay.
if you started to once you know what some of their work was, you start to see it.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah.
So this episode was dope because another thing that never really gets mentioned, a sabersmith, like someone who literally just creates lightsabers. But essentially, all these people get brought in. All these Jedis get brought in for a secret location. Right, and this secret location saying that, hey, clearly this world doesn't have lightsabers, as it's not as prevalent as we've known once, because no one has one. So all these Jedis get called by this random person, and they're like, hey, we have lightsabers. So they all show up to this place and like, okay, well, we have lightsabers. So pretty much this episode that starts off that way, and there's a group of them, and then we go to this character, Kara, who is a fun, upbeat character, and her father is a sabersmith, a guy who creates lightsabers, and he has the kyber crystals. Another episode where they mentioned kyber crystals, which was like a big part of this episode.
Yeah.
Pretty much, they try to come stop him, and Kara takes the lightsabers and has her own lightsaber, but her own lightsaber doesn't have a color to it because they changed the way that the kyber crystals were for this a little bit. Basically saying that depending on who wields these lightsabers, the color will change.
How you're tuned to the Force.
Yeah. So that was a cool concept, which is also dope because then you don't have to go into the whole detail about why your kyber crystal
is this color
is this color or that color. And I think that's dope because then even if it changes colors to whatever it does, you can still know because we have books and stuff on what all the Jedi colors mean. So I thought that was a dope idea because then you could, depending on what you are in that moment, your lightsaber would reflect that. And we saw Kara's was kind of like a colorless. She didn't have like really strong force. So her mission was
kind of black lightsaber, but not. It was like transparent. It was kind of cool.
It was like it was kind of like translucent, transparent, like you said. She goes off. They obviously try to take her father because he's one of the few people who can actually make a lightsaber. And then she's traveling on the snow. She's being chased. She does a badass stop on the thing and then cuts the person who's chasing her. She finally
that person that chased her had respect for it. As soon as he gets up, he like dusts himself off. He's like, all right, okay. And then goes back.
She got me. So then she ends up going to the place, meets up with the other Jedis. She's like, hey, I'm a Jedi. Like, my father was the one who was supposed to make you guys these lightsabers.
We gotta go save them. All this other stuff.
You know what I mean? And then the person who brings them there, who looks like an evil robot because he has the red eye, which was a nice trick that they played, right? Because we associate red with evil. Mm-hmm. So like when we saw the red eye, I was like, oh, this guy is trying to fool them. And I forget his name. I think it's like Juro or something like that was the character's name. But then the lightsabers all fall and everyone picks one up. And Juzero, who I don't even remember his name, but he pretty much he's like, like this is not a trap, blah blah blah. And then they're like, oh, he goes, I'm ashamed of all of you, and all of those Jedis pop their lightsabers and they're all red. And I know
Which
Chris
is
and I
a
talked about this, and that was a
fantastic
big
moment.
oh shit moment because we're like, okay, cool. And then all of them go red and we go, oh, okay. Like, because we already have the fact that we know it's going to change colors to whatever they think.
Yeah.
It turns red and we're like, oh, so they were the trap, essentially trying to stop him. And then we find out the robot was the person who brought them in, is a complete badass because he comes out and he starts fighting all of them like with no problem. He's like fighting them all. He is doing work. So we find out that Kara then is obviously was they knew each other since birth, and she pretty much has a way with the Force, so she starts to help fight. And then we have the other random
the one guy,
Jedi.
which I felt bad for, because whenever they all ignite their lightsabers and it's all red, he looks and he's like, they're red, and he knows, and he's like, wait, and then they all look at him, and he's like, because you can tell he doesn't really have the Force, like he knows he's Force sensitive, he just doesn't have a trainer. So the whole time he's trying to fight, like it's his first time ever. He's never seen one, and it's his first time wielding a lightsaber. So him trying to like fight and get into it is like was a wake up call for him. Like, oh my god, like this shit is real.
But like his was blue, so
his was blue.
He did have like a blue lightsaber, and which was cool. And then they're starting to fight, and then Kara, another character, like I said, I would completely follow if they did a whole series on her. She's fighting, and her lightsaber is still the same color. And then she has her like Jedi moment, and it turns green. And that again, another freak out moment, because that's such a cool like thing. Like it's mid fight, she's fighting, she has this black lightsaber. She doesn't know if she's actually strong enough, or she doesn't feel like she's strong enough. But in that moment, she is. And then her lightsaber changes to green, and like
and then she goes even more
Jedi.
ham.
And then she just goes ham because now she's hype. Like, you know what I mean? And she's, you know what I mean? So then they end up taking care of the threat. Pretty much Kara, and like I said, I forgot. I feel bad because I forget this guy's name, and I like him a lot. And then they show up, and then he's like, "You are strong enough," and he tells them like the other guy also, which was cool because one of the other guys who shows up with them, the wolf-looking guy,
he was undercover, I guess.
No, he wasn't there. He just said he was angry, so it did turn red. Remember? And then as he's fighting the boy with the blue saber, he's like. Juzero goes, "This is not who you are." Like, you know what I mean? And then his color changes to purple.
Yeah, and he's like,
which was cool because it's a purple lightsaber again. Like,
he's like, they influenced me, and all
they influenced me. So it shows that you can change, and I thought that was a cool concept. Like, because I don't think it should be as black and white as we like. Obviously, you do some things that make you become Sith, or like you're seek of power, but you can be in the middle, and you can have moments where you feel like you want to do some Sith stuff, but then also be like, that's probably not the right thing to do, and then go back. So I thought that was an interesting way that how they played with the being able to go back and forth, or just the idea of you control your own destiny kind of thing was super dope to me, because we all know about destiny in Star Wars and how it works, and this kind of gave them that moment of, hey, you can control what you do next, and I thought that was a cool concept.
For me, this episode was very up there for me. I loved it a lot. The moment with the what's her girl's name? Kara and her dad. Whenever he's just like, whenever he knows they land, and you have that sense like he knows like I'm not gonna make it, and he's like, hey, like you're gonna be great, and all this other stuff. And she's like, why are you talking to me like this is the last time? And I'm like, oh. Here we go. So goes through the whole thing. The building explodes. He sacrifices himself in order for her to continue. Mm-hmm. But we, later on we find out he's just captured. He's fine.
Which perfect to start the series of her trying to go get her dad. So let that happen.
One of my favorite moments of that episode too is like her getting chased and everything. You're right. You're just like, get out. You get that sense like, get out of there. Like, let's go. Mm-hmm. And then she gets to the ship operator to get off planet, and this ship operator is an old, like, even in subtitles it says old robot. He's like drinking, and he's sipping like motor
oil. Which I thought was hilarious.
So he's like, I'm on my break, ask somebody else. And she looks over and all the other robots are falling apart, so she's like, well, you're the only one operating. He's like, okay, well, I guess I'll do it. And he's like taking the slowest steps, And she's like, oh
Thinking
my
he's a
God, let's go.
robot.
Like, let's go.
Who just had some oil, by the way. So like, come on, man.
Yeah.
But he was funny. It was a good, nice little comic twist.
But yeah,
there.
that moment of all of them turning red, and you do find out that the people that he called, he caught wind that the other Jedi that he called were captured or killed, and the Sith took their place and showed up. So yeah, it was nuts, man. It was a very, very good episode. So yeah, on to Toby.
Right. Toby, which was I'm gonna go ahead. This was by Science Sorrow, who notable work they did Inua. They did an episode of Adventure Time. And yeah, so if you remember the anime feeling episode of Adventure Time, they did that episode. This episode for me was very heartwarming. It was really Astro Boy vibes is what I was getting from it, right? Because it's a robot who essentially is, has this dream of being a real person, right? Of being a Jedi, which that's what he wanted to do, right? He even though his creator was like, look, you don't need to do all that stuff. Like, just enjoy the time that you have being here. Never go into the basement, which was the key. And then he's like, well, he finally cracks and he's like, well, if you want to be a Jedi, you got to find a crystal. And we have one on this planet. This kid, he looks everywhere, doesn't find it. Then he goes into the basement, finds I think it's an X-Wing. I don't remember if it's an X-Wing or
no. It's whatever Obi-Wan used. It's like the little. It's like a triangle. I don't know.
It might be the Y. It might be a Y-wing. It's
it is. Yeah.
So there's a Y-wing in there. He starts pressing buttons because he's a kid, and obviously this alerts the Sith, and the Sith are like have an Inquisitor who's looking for all these Jedis to take out, and then the father comes and he's like, you shouldn't have done that. It's too late. Go inside. You find out the father is actually Force sensitive and was a Jedi
who has no arms either. It took me a long time to figure that out, that he didn't have arms at all. And
so he does that. Then he tells the kid, hey, go inside. Don't come out for anything. So he goes out. Obviously, he comes back. His dad is dead. And then it puts him on the original journey, which was to save the planet. And he creates rain for the planet that couldn't rain. And it brings off all this, eventually so it could bring food and all that stuff. The Inquisitor finds out that there's another person on there. And then he tries to fight Toby. And Toby finds out this whole time that he had a lightsaber on him. And he pulls out the lightsaber. And this was probably one of the best fight scenes in this whole series. Because the way that it looked between him and the Inquisitor and the way that Toby was moving was amazing to me. Like the camera angles where they did that little camera angle on the side and then you see them fighting on the... Amazing. Just amazing. And then obviously this is a story just like you would think. Toby gets into this fight with the Inquisitor. He loses an arm, Star Wars, and then he loses an arm, ends up being able to do a final attack, which is very Dragon Ball Z-like because it reminded me of Gohan when he had his one arm. And because like his father was there, all that stuff happened, and then he kills him. But it was a really sweet episode, and like I said, it did give me Astro Boy vibes because it felt that same way. And it also shows that a Jedi it's really a belief more than you having to be human to do it. Because we've seen everyone across the galaxy essentially be able to be Force sensitive and to follow these rules of the Jedi and stuff like that. So I think showing Toby being an android and still having that sense of feeling because that's what his programmer wanted him to have and wanting to be a Jedi, this was a perfect way of showing that. So I thought overall this was a sweet episode and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a very sweet episode. The fact that his father was basically just trying to help planets. That's what I liked a lot. It's just like, hey, my life's purpose is just to heal planets now. And the fact that Toby takes that on, he's like, oh, I'm gonna be a Jedi, but now we're gonna finish his plan,
his legacy,
and his legacy. And on that planet, he's like, oh, I'm trying to make clouds, and we're trying to do this and that. So it's pretty cool that he gets in the ship and he immediately is like, okay, off to the next planet to help it heal. So it was definitely the life part of the Force, the nature part of it that I loved a lot. It was a very heartwarming episode.
Yeah, it was super good, and I don't think I have much more to say on that, but definitely up. It was definitely a really good episode. If you want a lighthearted story, definitely check that one out. Episode 7, The Elder, which was also made by Trigger, Kill la Kill. They this one you could tell this was very Kill la Kill like because of the animation. The animation on this was very Kill la Kill like, and it looked really good. We had Dan, who was a Padawan, and a master who we actually don't get his name, but we have that master and Padawan connection, which we all know about Star Wars. We have what the master always being serious, and then we have the Padawan who's that young friend, like like young, outgoing, hasn't seen the world yet, hasn't been seasoned, and they go out to go on a mission. They go on a mission to this planet to see. I forgot what the main story, what the main reason why they went to the planet for, but they go to this planet because there was a distress call, I think, and they end up talking to the villagers, and then we see the master tell his Padawan, listen, you gotta, you want to be, I know I've seen the world so much more than you. This is the way that you need to handle certain situations, but don't forget to always be kind-hearted. And we see the Padawan Dan have a kind-hearted moment with the kids, where like the kid, where he's playing around with the kids. He ends up having to go on top of a mountain to figure out, because we come to find out there's a Sith on this planet. He gets there, which was, this is one of those things, right, where I always go like, you know what? These masters be making some poor decisions. Like, yes, he is the ship expert, right? But you know that he is not on that ship.
Yeah.
You know the Sith isn't on that ship. You know it. You have to know that. So they send Dan on top of the mountain because he's the mountain expert.
Well, Dan was able to convince him too, because in the beginning of the episode, Dan's bored. He's just like, oh, I didn't think the outer room was so quiet and all this other stuff. I thought, like, he wants to see some action. Which, by the way, this is the only other episode I watched in English. Dan is Jordan Fisher, and I think he did a great job. But yeah, when he goes up there, like, I don't know. At the same time, I feel like the master's just like, you know what, like let him explore. I can't baby him.
He can't.
But whenever I tell him to come back, he better come back. Which in all of Star Wars, that never happens. They're like, no, I got this, and they're like, no, get back over here.
So anyway, we come to find out he's on top of the mountain. He makes it. He finds the information. He sees one of the creatures who can't really be killed by anything but a lightsaber, actually is dead, and he calls it in, which I thought was cool because he actually calls it in to his master, and doesn't just try to be like do it all on himself. So he did make an attempt, right? And then, like, obviously this elder shows up, and man, he shows up, and we get another lightsaber iteration. He has pretty much two like mini swords, essentially, right? Because they're like mini, not even daggers because they're long enough.
They were katana-like. They look really cool.
Yeah, they were like mini short katana-like swords.
Yeah.
Like lightsabers. And he's, of course, a badass with them, because anytime you see these new iterations with lightsabers, the person's going to be a badass. Remember, Darth Maul was the first time we saw, the double-ended and complete badass. So this is what we need. We need more lightsaber weapons iterations. Don't go crazy with them. But anything that was a sword and someone who was comfortable with the way, because if a Jedi can be taken from anywhere, then we know they're going to have different iterations of these weapons.
And the last time, before the show, the last time I think that I was like, that's a really cool lightsaber, is the black saber. The first time I saw that's really cool. That's different. And then also in Clone Wars, there's a Padawan episode, and one of them's a Wookiee, and his lightsaber is made out of wood. It's a full wood lightsaber, and I was like, that's dope too. And that's the only time, like, you see it twice. They look different. All the rest kind of look the same as like Luke and all them. They're kind of like in that same build.
Well, then and then Kylo has his, because it's like splitting from the thing, because he doesn't have like a fully good kyber crystal, so it like spurts out from the side. But also Ahsoka's she has one short, one long, so she does have different sabers also.
That too, yeah.
And she also has the white ones, because that makes sense. But yeah, if you read the book, you would know why. So anyway, that happens. So we see that iteration. He's dead. Like the master says, "Hey, get back here because you are not beating this guy. I already know because I could sense the force. I could sense like a disruption
he
in the
sent the
force.
presence, and then
Yeah,
also he hid his presence, and that just tells you like if he's hiding his presence, he knows
yeah,
what he's doing.
yeah.
But yeah,
Giving us
give it to
Dragon
Dan.
Ball
I'll
Z
give it to Dan.
vibes also.
He did go back. He was about to go back, and he turned
tried.
around, and then you had the horror moment of like, nah, and he's like, the old man's there, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah. So then he pulls out his lightsaber, tries to fight him. Obviously, Dan gets whipped because he's not winning that fight. And this is one of those things in anime. Well, if you're fighting an old dude, you might as well forget it. You're not winning that fight. Like the first person he fights is not winning. The old people in anime are complete badasses and they always win. So I know Chris and I both had the same reaction. He's not winning this.
No,
I don't think
I was like, he's getting whooped.
Yeah. So then the master obviously rushes back to make it over there, and then they have their fight scene, and that's classic, like old person versus the like person in their prime kind of thing right now, and they have an epic fight, right? Epic fight. He tries to use the force electricity after the master kind of puts his one of his swords down. He kind of does this weird like this block thing, and then he slices them and literally like not even slices them. He stabs the sword in through his chest and then ignites
it was
his
cool.
lightsaber.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like he swiftly goes up, puts it onto his. Oh, it's so.
And then it goes whoop, and
but
then
also,
it just goes through him.
What was clean
and
was
then it comes back.
him taking his sword.
Yeah.
Like the first initiate, like he's like, okay, I need to get it on a level ground, and was able to like that movement that he had was so smooth. He goes up, grabs it, pushes him back, and then like instead of using both swords, he's just like, nope, this one's done, cuts it.
Yeah,
and, like,
he just cuts it in half.
And
like,
then you see the elder, he's just like, bro, what the hell? Like,
yeah, but that's what I like because they were using logic there, right?
Yeah.
Like, why not? Why would I allow him to fight comfortably?
Yeah,
right?
level the playing field. Like he's obviously knows how to use two, so that means he's going to be very uncomfortable with one.
So let me go and take something that's going to make him uncomfortable in this fight.
Yeah,
and that's what I like. I like when you do things like that because that made him uncomfortable, and then we started to see why. Like, and then we obviously saw the final attack. We also find out Dan isn't dead, thankfully. Like Dan did make it. He didn't get cut all the way through. And then, but the lesson here, because this episode is called The Elder, is he was pretty much telling, the master tells him, look, if that dude was in his prime, he would have got me.
Yeah,
like,
we would
this
not
would have been a
made
completely different fight because he's just strong. But he was like, there's a time where, you know, you're going to be in your, there's a time where you're getting older. And the master was basically like, I'm getting older. So like,
that's
I
why
need
I'm teaching
you
you. Like, this is
exactly.
why you need to learn. Yeah,
exactly. So it was a really nice, like, thing on age, right? It just shows, hey, like even though like we have 3 different age groups here and they were in 3 different stages of their lives, and this was a great episode that showed that like aging and things like that. So I thought that was a real cool way of hiding that within an you know, and within a Star Wars episode. So that was it. Yeah, that's for
oh man, I had a train of thought and I lost it. Or you also find out this was interesting that he used to be a Sith. So he somehow surpassed I'd say he surpassed Sith because like the master like feels the presence and he's like, man, I'll tell you what, I know he used to be a Sith, but what I felt now was complete darkness. Like it was scary. And you saw it in his eyes. His eyes were yellow. He's just looking for a good fight. He's just
he said he got tired of their way.
Yeah.
He said he got tired of the Sith way.
Yeah, so. And so you find that out, which I thought was insane, and that all he was just looking for was just a really good fight. Like he just wants to fight somebody. And yeah, the going back to the whole elder, you're getting older. The elder even knows that. He's like, man, if I would, he's like, I wish I knew you when I was younger, because this would have been a really good fight. So, it was but creepy old man vibes, man, all the way through. But he was a badass, and Dan, keep trying. You
get there, Dan.
Yeah. I would have force jumped my way off to the side, off the mountain, and slid down
off that thing.
Yeah.
As soon as I would have seen the eyes, I'd have been like,
I was like, hey.
Yeah, I'd have been like, "What's that?" just been out of there.
Master, you're here, huh?
I would have just the oldest trick in the book, and I'd have went right down that mountain because I ain't fighting him.
Yeah,
so.
and then the master could get you didn't stand your ground. Hell no, I didn't stand my ground.
Did you see that
man?
So yeah, that a good episode. Really, like I really enjoyed that episode.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 8. This is Lop and Oko. This episode was produced by Geno Studios, who haven't. This was like their first major work, right? And boy, did they do a good job, because this episode, to me, also one of my favorite ones of the show. It goes with that tradition again, right? So there's a family. We don't remember. I don't think they said the dad's name, but there's a family. There's a like an area that's pretty much very like in poverty, and we meet this character Lop, who is like a rabbit-like creature. I would say she's
which
running
that city
around.
that she's in is beautiful.
Yeah,
seeing the rendition of the city I was like, man, I wish we got more of these.
Yeah, so she's in the city. She's like an exile essentially, and she's just stealing to get food, trying to make it by. And then Oko's family essentially adopts her as their own, right? So that was the beginning of the episode. So she goes from being broke, losing her parents, and fighting on the streets, to this rich traditional, Japanese style home, right? So basically, the conflict on this episode is Oko feels her dad is thinking out of touch. It's no longer the best way to help the family. It's no way to help the family progress. And we find out Lop is kind of in between both of them. She's like, no, like, I understand where you're coming from, but like, you should go through this with dad because he knows all these things, and that's the proper way to do it, right? So we find out that Oko is actually trying to work with the Empire in order to reestablish the planet and make them like have all of the resources they need to maintain their family. So her intentions are good. She's just doing it with the wrong people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we find out on that bridge scene, she's like, well, dad doesn't want to do this. Then I'm just going to have to go all out. She cuts her hair, cuts the braid, and then bites her thing Attack on Titan.
Yeah, puts the blood on.
And then
I was like, what the hell?
thing. And I was like, oh, okay, so we're in there. And then Lop obviously gets scared, doesn't want to deal with all that because obviously she loves her
Doesn't
sister.
get back in the car to turn around. She just jumps off that.
Which was interesting to me. The fact that she took the long way
said,
because she just didn't. Because and because I went back on that episode also because I was like, was she the one driving? And she totally was the one driving.
She was the driver. She's always driving. And then the car was magically back. I mean, this episode was a favorite for me. But like those are the only two situations. It's like she left the car on the bridge, and then whenever the big moment happens when she's gonna go save her dad, she gets back in the car. I'm like, oh, the car's at the house? What the?
I don't know. I mean, it is Star Wars, so it could have automatically just made it back, whatever.
Yeah.
But she goes to have a conversation with her dad. Her dad is basically like, Oko is pretty. She's doesn't know about the tradition. And then he basically has this moment with Lop where he's like, look, you've always been a daughter to me. Like, yeah, you weren't my favorite. Like, he admits it. He's like, you weren't like, I always kind of like, Oko was always my favorite kind of because it was her. But that doesn't change that you were my child. And I want to give you something as a family tradition. We find out the family tradition is a lightsaber, which again, cool because different parts of the world and different parts of the galaxy will have tradition differently. Yeah. So obviously them understanding the way of the Jedi and having something that they pass down that is sacred to them. And I really enjoyed that they had that moment where it was a sacred weapon and the lightsaber was that sacred weapon. So she basically gives her the lightsaber before he has a conversation with Oko, because he goes to have this conversation and he knows, because Star Wars, they always know when they're not going to make it, right? Yeah. So he's just like, I'm not going to make it. So here, and then Lop being, the naive child is like, oh, I love you both. So don't make it too hostile. And obviously he flies away. He goes there. Then we hear a boom because obviously we all know this fight was going to happen.
Well, he knew because that moment between those two was nice because he's like, you can tell the dad was just like, my daughter's gone. Like my older daughter's gone. Like she's completely lost. Yeah, she's too far. but this sweet child is still thinks there's hope, and is not is kind of naive to what the situation is, and it's just like, okay, yeah, I mean, you keep thinking that way. Awesome. Yeah, I hope so, and
I
I'm
want
glad.
you to, yeah.
Yeah, she's like, oh, she told me she loved you, and he's like, that's great to hear, thank you, and then leaves because he knows, like, okay, well, now it's business. Like, now I have to do what has to be done. This is it. So
Exactly.
yeah.
So then that boom is actually them fighting, having this big ass fight scene with traditional Japanese weapons, which I thought was amazing. Okay, we have scythes, we have all this stuff, and they're like fighting like droids and stuff with these weapons, and I'm like, yes, like, and then Oko and and her dad are having this big fight scene. That ends up happening, and we're just like, okay, cool. We know something bad's about to happen. Lop finally shows up. She's like, okay, cool. Like, hey, stop this. Then the dad loses his other eye and pretty much is blind. And Oko's like standing over him and whatever. And then she's gonna go in for the attack. Then Lop shows up, ignites the lightsaber, which is traditional,
Which
like
is dope because they
Japanese.
also
It has the writing
the writing.
inside.
Yeah, I was like,
Oh,
what?
so it has the like traditional, like most engraved swords do, and it had like the engravings of what I would assume is their family, like, code or whatever the case may be. And she has that in her lightsaber. And then obviously Oko's upset because she's like, I'm the heir apparent. I'm supposed to be the one who gets that, and she doesn't. And then they have a amazing fight scene again. Like Lop and Oko have this whole fight scene where they're just like, obviously, like Lop is not trying to kill Oko, but she has the force and she can use it. And they have this fight scene which is pretty epic. And then it looks like Lop gets the killing blow and sends her off, and then we see Oko fly off on a ship. So that is another story that now can continue. So let's get it. I don't see a problem here. I could take 5-6 episodes. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? So
and the dad felt bad for the dad there whenever he's just like, well, my life's done. He's like, I can't see you guys'
like,
faces anymore. Like, that's it. And
then you're just heartbroken, and then he's just like,
Yep. And Lop had that coming moment right there where she's just like, okay, this is different. Like, I have to, like, this isn't right. I mean, obviously, I think if we do see him again, which I hopefully we do, she's gonna try to get her sister back and continue. So, yeah.
So yeah, that was pretty much on that episode, and then we're gonna go final episode. We finally made it to it's Akira, right?
Akira. Yeah, Akira.
Akira. So it's this episode was done by Science Sorrow. They were the same people who did the Toby episode. They use a completely different animation style, which I wasn't the biggest fan of, to be honest. But I completely did understand why they did it, because the episode was the darkest of the episodes, because this was finally the moment where a character accepted the dark side, not as a form of because they wanted to be bad, but because they wanted to save the person they love, which we know that story. But that story happened differently in Star Wars because they died, but he actually does save the person that, his sister, right? Is this his sister?
No, I think he just grew up, like he worked for the family. So it was love. He loved her.
So he like loved her, and basically this is the story is about a princess. Long story short, it's a princess, and the empire comes to take over, and she doesn't want it to get taken over, so she goes into exile because the family kind of is like, yo, like this has to happen. And we find out that the kid, like, that's her sister. The girl, the woman that's inside, the Sith Lord, that's inside is her sister. We find that out, and then once that happens, we're like, okay, cool. She kind of like does an attack that hurts her sister. She dies, and then this episode was heartbreaking, but also fun because of those two guys that helped them get back to the castle.
The guides,
the two guides, because they were hilarious, right? They were singing and they were like, "Hey, stop talking! Like they're gonna hear us," and they just keep singing.
And they're like, "Oh, you're scared? Like this warns spirits away." They were just like crazy.
They were a crazy bunch.
And then also, this was an episode that they actually connected to episode 8 because they mentioned Oko. So she mentions her name And it was like, oh, okay, this is the first time that they're tying one together. This is kind of cool. But yeah, the brothers were a very nice touch, but also the main character that you're following that comes back to save the princess because she hears about the father being taken over. He keeps having visions. He keeps having nightmares, and it's stopping him during his fight. So a lot of that happening is insane. And what, as you see the visions, it comes into fruition at the end of the episode, which was this was like the darkest turn. This took a super dark turn very quick. You find out that the Sith Lord that's there, is she a Sith Lord or an Inquisitor? Probably Sith Lord.
Probably, Inquisitor.
Inquisitor. So you find out that that's actually the king's sister that betrayed him, and she basically gets into this guy's head, and she sends people after him after the princess gets captured, and basically they put a mask on the princess, and he sends her forward, and as he's blinded and he's slashing through, he cuts her down, and so basically he kills the person he loves. And it's like the moment I was just like, my jaw dropped, and I was like, oh. It's like, we went there. What?
Yeah, they went there, and then she basically was like, listen, if you want to save her, you have to become my apprentice.
Yeah, he's like, I'll help you. And then
this is where that destiny thing happens, because he wasn't able to control it, even though he was seeing all these visions on the ways that he probably could have stopped it, right? Because if he would have relaxed, calmed down, he never would have actually slashed his, like, he wouldn't have taken like a death blow on everyone he ran into.
Yeah, because he had it was just a full emotion thing, and also you see a flashback with his old master, who said like, hey, we should send somebody else because you're gonna be, I feel like you said you had nightmares, you're gonna be tempted when you get there. Like this is like the master already knew, like, this, like, I'm not gonna force you to stay, but just know this is what lies ahead for you. Like, you should probably really weigh the situation, and you're going off of emotion because this is a person you know and love, and that's the only reason why you're going, and it should not be that way. So
so that happens, and then he cuts her down, and then she says, hey, I can help you out if you become my apprentice. Then she does the revive thing that they learned in episode
very nice. Like 9. She's just like
everyone just one of those things. She does the revive thing. It's like, all right, I'll revive the person you love. Revives her, and then obviously now he can't go back on his word, which was his whole vision nightmare thing anyway, was becoming part of the Sith. And that's exactly what happened.
It was so sad too, because she gets up and she's like, what did you do? And then he's just she's like, come, my apprentice. And then she starts crying, and he just walks up the steps, and then the doors close. And then I was like, don't do it. And then the credits roll. And I was like, oh.
But it also has that red like background vibe too. So it feels like you're like, oh, which is what I was saying about the animation. It works because the episode's supposed to be heartbreaking. It's supposed to be dredged, and you're supposed to feel that, right? And then animation makes you feel that. So I thought they did a great job on this episode. Also, a good season finale. I think this is one of those episodes you do have to twice though to appreciate it. And my main takeaway on this was the Sith get their way. Like, I was just like, this was one of the episodes where you know what? We've been watching the Sith not get their way, and they got their way on this one. So it was a good balance to balance that out. Be like, look, this is what we're leaving you guys with. So that's pretty much it for our episode breakdown. So Chris, I'm going to ask you a question. What was your top 3 episodes of Star Wars Vision?
All right, talking through them kind of helped me out. So at my number 1, The Ninth Jedi.
No, go backwards.
Go backwards?
Yeah.
Too late. Well, my number 1 is Ninth Jedi. Okay. I should have went backwards. Yeah. Well. Yeah, number 1, Ninth Jedi. Love that episode. I love the story with the different. I can't get out of my head that the lightsabers, how they change color, is tuned to the Force, or how you're tuned to the Force. For my number 2, I'm going to go with the Elder. That fight and how crazy that guy is, like how crazy the Elder was, and how like ridiculously strong. I wish I could have saw more of like his thought process. Was insane to me. Love that fight scene, like Dan, and everything like that. So yeah, that was number 2 for me. And then number 3 was very hard. I was gonna have the duel in my top 3, but I think I'm gonna go Lop and Oko. That story was deep. It's very sad. This family, like you see, they did a really good job of like telling these stories in 20 minutes. Like, hey, this is the history.
Yeah.
Like you're going through it, and they get you quickly attached to these characters, and then just so you can see the family fall apart, and you can be part of it. And they did a really great job with that. So yeah, so Ninth Jedi, The Elder, and Lop and Oko, and I can't wait to see more. So
just so everyone knows, before this started, Chris's top episode was the duel.
was the duel,
Just
but then then we started talking about more and more. I was like, man, you know what? These are really good.
Exactly. So for me, my top three is number 3 is Lop and Oko. Like you said, everything that you said, fantastic episode. It was just so good to me. Number 2 for me is the duel, just because of the premise behind it. Like, not only did I love the animation, but just the premise behind having a character who's using pretty much what, like, it's also one of those things where it's like, don't let an appearance tell the full story. Like, because if you would have seen, we're so established to seeing a red lightsaber as being evil, and this guy wasn't evil. Like, he was actually helping this village out. So don't judge a book by its cover, pretty much. And then number 1 for me is the village. Yellow lightsaber. I mean, I can't even. It's not even like the premise behind the whole episode, as like just having the spirituality and all that stuff, and just a completely different take. But having a samurai yellow lightsaber, you won.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just there's no other way to explain it. So that was our top 3 episodes. I think that is going to be it. This is going to be a little bit longer episode because we had a lot to cover, but we didn't want to do this all in one episode because I think in separate episodes
we did the full debrief. This is you've been debriefed on the village or on Visions.
So this is a little bit longer one, but stick around, catch it to the end. If you guys like this content, please hit the like, subscribe, do all that stuff so we can give this mouse away, like Chris said at the beginning of the episode.
Stuff.
And then we have more stuff we want to give away. So do that stuff for us. Tell a friend. Guys, we will see you guys next Tuesday. Don't forget, we do our live show every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be on Twitch and YouTube hopefully soon. Yes. So we are going to do that stuff. And then next week, we're going to drop another 2 episodes because we have the What If episode and Venom. So it's going to be a lot of content. We might be doing 2 a week for a little bit. And then even after What If is over, we're going to have an episode. I think we're going to do a ranking episode. So be on the lookout for that. So like all our stuff, follow us on the Twitter and all that good stuff. And then we will continue to provide you guys content. So with that being said, this was a longer episode, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. Fire Team out.